So as promised, we're back here for an SDHPM. John here, you there. And we will go until 7 o'clock because at 7 o'clock, our friends over at Scarves and Spikes are going to pick things up from there with their coverage of what happened this morning. And for those of you that might have been at work, might have been kind of stuck, and saw something come across your social media a little before 10 o'clock this morning. We'll talk about it this afternoon, tonight, / whatever. And then we'll talk about it again in the morning, once again, as things continue to grow and evolve. But a little before 10 o'clock this morning, word came across. Atlanta United parts ways with VP and Technical Director Carlos Bocanegra. Couple of paragraphs, some quotes, and what we're going to do over the next hour is go through the release once again. And then we have sound from this afternoon's media opportunity with Garth Lagerwey. A couple of different topics involving the GM search, involving the coaching search, involving the pressure that is attached, status of Atlanta United and where things are right now, and where folks go from here. So, just before 10 o'clock this morning, Atlanta United announced parted ways with VP Technical Director Carlos Bocanegra effective immediately. President and CEO Garth Lagerwey will assume Bocanegra's duties on an interim basis for the remainder of the 2024 season. In one of the sound bites that we will play in this hour, you will hear a question is raised about the GM being a part of the coaching search, and Garth answers it because he is currently VP Technical Director, he'll be handling the general manager duties, and so he answers the question. You'll hear it from his perspective of being the de facto GM at the moment, the interim general manager, among other things. So Garth had his quotes about Carlos, and had his sentences about Carlos. While we will continue to fight for a playoff spot down the final stretch of the season, Garth alludes to that in the sound that you will hear. This gives us a clean slate and a runway to properly assess all vacancies in our sporting operation ahead of what will be an extremely important offseason for our club, end quote. And that's the truth. As we said this morning, this is the search of all searches because it is going to involve a vice president, technical director, and a head coach, with President and CEO Garth Lagerwey and input from AMBSE plus the search firm all involved in the process to figure out who fills those positions from here. Atlanta United made a point to go through all of the accomplishments of Carlos Bocanegra that he was a part of in his time with Atlanta United, and there are a lot of them, both individual and team, bringing in players, transfers, all that kind of information. Club currently conducting its search to fill the head coach role vacancy. However, there is no timetable for filling that role. The search for the club's next technical director will begin immediately. You'll hear from Garth about the head coaching search as well. Statement from Arthur Blank that was attached to it. And then the media availability this afternoon. So let's start things off now as we go here. Yep, Chris, it is big news. Like I said, it is the search of searches, capital S in both fronts. So let's start off our recap, or look back at the press conference from this afternoon, the media availability, as it was listed by Atlanta United. The media availability involving assembled media and Garth Lagerwey. And in the discussions with Garth Lagerwey, Garth addresses Carlos Bocanegra and the tenure and what to recall from the time from Carlos's time with Atlanta United. So once again, this is from the media availability this afternoon. And the one thing that I'm going to do in the sound that you will hear, Badger, no worries. It's an important story. Figured it was something that needed to be done. Thanks for hanging out with us. You will hear the sound bites in their entirety. From the end of the question is when I start the response that you hear from Garth Lagerwey. This is not 20-second soundbite theater. Because we have the space to do it, you're going to hear the full soundbite so you have context of everything that Garth said when a question was asked of him. This is not like doing a sports cast and getting a 20-second snippet and then trying to extrapolate where Garth is going from here. Full sound bites here on the show. And once again, for those that missed this show, we'll do it again tomorrow morning in the 10 o'clock block and then the Power Hour with Nino and Nico at 10 and 10:30. And we'll get Nico's perspective because of a name that was floated by our friends at Give Me Sports. But starting things off, Garth on Carlos Bocanegra and his tenure.
The evaluation was about the body of work. And the body of work, not just over the last 18 months when I've been here, but over the last 5 years. And ultimately, we decided that despite some incredible successes, Carlos was founding member of this organization. He's the one who set the bar so high, winning not just the 2018 MLS Cup, but Campeones Cup and the Open Cup. So he really did a tremendous job for the organization over many years. And ultimately, as we evolved our player model and we went into more of an analytics-based player evaluation process, we just felt that ultimately we were gonna evolve, and again wanted to preserve our flexibility going into 2025 and really look at it and say, hey, for the first time we have a clean slate. We have an ability to kind of relaunch the franchise, and we're really excited about that opportunity.
So that is Garth Lagerwey discussing the ultimate decision that was made involving Carlos Bocanegra and the future of the franchise. So as the questions moved forward, once again, we look at this as the search of all searches, because initially it was the removal of Gonzalo Pineda, parting ways with Gonzalo Pineda as head coach. Rob Valentino is the interim. Not the first time that he has been the interim. And so it was asked on a couple of different fronts about the coaching search. Rob is included in that for the remainder of this season, because remember, there's a handful of matches that are left. You're in the 9. We talked about how chaotic the Eastern Conference traditionally is. 7 teams separated by 5 points leading into the 9 slot in the Eastern Conference at present. So then, question was asked of Garth about the GM search. And is there going to be a GM in place to be a part of the collective to look for a head coach? So here's Garth's answer to that question about the GM search in and of itself and its place in trying to determine that would this new GM, be a part of the discussion when it comes to hiring a head coach.
We will not do a dual role. We believe very strongly in the separation of church and state. You need one person to do on the field, one person to do off the field. That's the structure I've had my whole career. So we'll definitely be 2 people. We will definitely be hiring a GM. The good news is obviously I've done that role, and so I feel capable of running the head coaching search alongside some trusted AMBSC leadership. And so we will look to keep those 2 roles separate. And in terms of profile I think you're asking profile for the GM. I think it's critically important that person have MLS experience. It's such a specialized system with the salary cap that I think that's vitally important. Obviously, we'll it'll be a global search. We'll cast a wide net. But if I have confidence in any market, in terms of what I know the GM market in and around MLS over the last 20 years.
So you will not have a coach GM. You will not have a coach GM attached to any new hire involving Atlanta United and their future. So that's not going to happen. So then this afternoon, Tom Bogert, Tommy Scoops, who is now at Give Me Sport, in addition to letting everybody know that Panathinaikos is interested in Lewis Morgan with the Greek window still open, questions were from Tom Bogert and names that have been floated around with the future. It was in the mop-up duty, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, with Tom, as Tom published a story over at Gimme Sport. There are names that are being floated as a part of the conversation. And one of those names that Bogert floated to the future of the franchise is deep in his article at Gimme Sport. And I will click the link and put it in the Twitch pitch if you are so inclined to read the Tom Bogert piece. So Bogert, in his article at Give Me Sport, floats the following. Headline, subsection 3, what's next for Atlanta United? Lagerwey will still hold the final say over transactions and setting the direction of the club, but whoever's brought in to replace Bocanegra will run the day-to-day aspects of the sporting side. One name that quickly surfaced from sources across the league is Inter Miami sporting director Chris Henderson. And we'll get to ask Nico Moreno about Chris Henderson tomorrow. Sentences continue. Henderson, photo below, worked with Lagerwey for years during a hugely successful run for both with the Seattle Sounders. Miami recently hired Raul Sanlehi as president of football operations this summer, and he's Henderson's current boss. While both Sanlehi and Henderson have made nothing but positive public comment since the announcement, sources tell Gimme Sport that Sanlehi took over Henderson's office and Henderson moved to a different one in the building. Even prior to Sanlehi's hire, sources across the league wondered if Henderson could be poached from Miami. The developments in Miami happen to take place ahead of a crucial winter for Atlanta United openings at technical director and head coach, plus the potential to bring in a handful of high-impact signings. So, Bogert floats Chris Henderson's name. And as much as we have given an incredible amount of grief on the morning show to Messi and friends. I'm not Garth Lagerwey, CEO of Atlanta United, by the way. That is not the case. As much grief as we have given Messi and friends about spending habits, prorated salaries, the cap, how it's massaged with the and friends, Chris Henderson has done and this is what we have stipulated as a part of all of this. Chris Henderson has done a tremendous job in navigating MLS's salary cap and all of the machinations therein. If there is an injury, what do? We go back as far as the DeAndre Yedlin trade. That was a deal for one of the weirdest numbers of AM I've ever seen. And that should tell you legitimately at points what Inter Miami was dancing around with when it came to flexibility, needing flexibility, and AM. The Miami Herald at the time, just to give you an idea. So DeAndre Yedlin gets traded to FC Cincinnati. We're sitting there going, initially when this happened, we were all looking at the activity in Major League Soccer on March the 4th and going, what in the wide world of sports is Inter Miami doing? But we knew that they were in a world of hurt when it came to their finances. So Inter Miami trades DeAndre Yedlin to FC Cincinnati. Pat Brennan at the Inquirer reported it first. Then, in exchange for Yedlin, Inter Miami would receive at the time $172,799 in general allocation money for 2024 and free up a cap charge of $683,000. $855,799 to use for future moves. The guaranteed salary for Yedlin in 23 was $873,750. So sporting director at Inter Miami, Chris Henderson, was massaging his roster to the point to where you're thinking down to the penny or the dollar, since we don't know the pennies that were attached. But you know down to the dollar what you need to navigate to help you out with other salaries and salary figures and cap and that kind of stuff. And with a club like Atlanta United, you see where Bogert is coming from. This is the first reference to this, but you understand 1 + 1 could equal 2. Because of the past in Seattle, because of what Bogert is reporting at Give Me Sport. If you're serious, and as Garth said, global search for a GM, MLS experience. You have 1 + 1 here. Does it equal 11? Does it equal 3? Or does it equal 2? It makes sense to add 1 + 1 to come up with 2 here, with Chris Henderson being a name in this global search for a GM that has to have MLS experience. And in individuals, as we have talked about on the morning show, like a John Thorrington at LAFC, like a Chris Henderson with Messi and friends, you see how they sign the deals that they do in destinations that are desired by athletes. LAFC, we go back to Chiellini, Gareth Bale. You had Carlos Vela that was there as one of your cornerstones. You bring in Olivier Giroud. You've got Hugo Lloris in Los Angeles. So John Thorrington knows how to navigate. Chris Henderson, and I'm going to go. I'm going to look at their transactions this season. Inter Miami transactions 2024. So the transfers dating back to January 4th. We'll do ins and outs. We'll do outs first. Out Kamal Miller for an allocation money fee. LGP January 6th to River for an undisclosed fee. January 31st, Nico Stefanelli to Fehervar for an undisclosed fee. February 1st, Chris McVeigh, allocation money to DC United. February 16, Emerson Rodriguez to Millonarios on loan. February 19, Edison Azcona initially was a loan to Vegas Lights before Vegas signed one of the highest deals in USL Championship history to keep him on a permanent. They waited until July 9th to make that happen, new fiscal year. Gregory to Botafogo for an undisclosed fee, the same day that Edison Azcona went to Vegas Lights on a loan initially, February 19. We mentioned DeAndre Yedlin, out the door. Jean Mota for an undisclosed fee to Vitoria. Emerson Rodriguez, July 16, to Vasco da Gama on a loan. August 8th, almost a month ago, Schneider Borgelin went to Vincicel for an undisclosed fee. That's your outs. 12, well, technically 11, 12 transactions, 11 players out since January 4th for Inter Miami. Inbound, because of injuries and such, you've had to navigate that as a part of this process. So you had 11 players leave between January 4th and August 8th. You navigated those funds to help you out with Julian Gressel coming in on a free. January 23rd, Nico Lafrere came from Pumas on a loan. Because of injuries on February 23rd, Federico Redondo came in from Argentinos Juniors on an undisclosed fee. March 22nd, you signed Yannick Bright, your draft pick from the University of New Hampshire, on a free. Injuries once again. Marcelo Wegan comes in to help you out from Boca Juniors on a loan. You signed Leo Afonso from the University of Virginia on a free. Matias Rojas was with No Team FC, and he was brought in on a free. Hector Martinez, July 25th, was brought in from River. None like bringing in Marcelo Wegan from Boca Juniors and bringing Hector Martinez from River to be under one happy umbrella on a loan. So you send 11 out, you bring 9 in, you've got injuries where you have to bring the 9 in and navigate your AM space and your cap space. Chris Henderson and Sanlehi, they get a tip of the cap from me from navigating what they navigated. So if what Tom Bogert is saying in his article at Give Me Sport has legs to where Sanlehi kicked Henderson, he took over Henderson's office. I was going to say kicked him out. But if Sanlehi, as the president of football operations, took over Chris Henderson's office, if that is me, that'd rub me the wrong way. Henderson moved to a different one in the building. So now, Chris Henderson, with what the evidence that we've talked about in just this season, that's just this year. That does not include Luis Suarez. That does not include Jordi Alba. That does not include Sergi Busquets. That does not include Messi and his NIL deal. All of the Gulfstream Galacticos that came in to be a part of the process, understandably, yes, Messi is there and you want to play with Leo Messi. Much like all the other players that you want to knock on their door and go, hey, you want to come to Inter Miami? You want to be a part of something really new and cool and be a part of a new building in 2026? You want to play with Leo Messi? Sign me up. So the Gulfstream Galacticos movement, the massaging of the salary cap, whatever it is, how much AM you have, how much AM you don't have, how much TAM you've got, how much, how many Garber bucks you have to play with, how much prorated salary can you deal with if someone goes on the injured list. Chris Henderson and his staff in Fort Lauderdale have massaged this to the nth degree. To have someone like that who can spend right up to the top of the cap, bring in the talented folks that they have, if what Tom Bogert is saying is adding stock to the roux, or part of the vegetables to the soup, or whatever you want to say, if it's adding to this recipe of, okay, could he be poached? Atlanta United, Arthur Blank, he's serious about spending money and developing and devoting resources to something like this. So that there are, like I said, there are breadcrumbs here. Whether it leads you to the big bad wolf or actually if it does lead you to escaping the forest, we don't know. But Chris Henderson does make a lot of sense. Can he be had for whatever his fee would be, however much time is left on his contract, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what you're staring at involving a GM's future with Garth, as he was asked about it today. Then, as we work our way through, Garth was asked about the pressures in and around the program. He was asked about the turnaround, and I'm asked about other things. So you have the coaching search, you have the pressure, you have the turnaround. So pressure that's involved with all of these things and the coaching search. Here's the conversation about the coaching search. Here's what Garth said when he was asked about that.
Yes, in the sense that I'm the acting GM, so I'll be leading the search, and the GM will be involved. I think, as a practical matter, a lot of the candidates we want to talk to for the GM search may be employed by other teams, and those guys aren't going to be available till after the season. So I do think that, given my former experience, I can bridge that gap pretty readily, and I can represent what a GM is going to want as we go forward with a head coaching search.
So there is that quick soundbite about the coaching search. Garth has been there before. And since Garth was asked about having a GM as a part of this process to look for a coach, Garth's like, well, since I'm the interim general manager and I've been through this before, this will be, I'll be with the AMBSE help. Yes. Since I am the de facto GM, yes, the GM will be involved in the process. Then, as we continue this, the pressure that's attached to all of the expectations and the role and everything going forward. These last two sound bites are kind of long, but what I wanted to do once again is let you hear in its entirety. That's the beauty of having the morning show, first and foremost, is that we can let things play out. Yeah, you pin something into a 20-second soundbite. It's snappy. You're moving the show along. No. Sometimes 20-second sound bites and drops are cute. You can get your point across. You keep moving on. You're flying at, past the speed limit. But when you have days like today, where Atlanta United is concerned, you need to hear things in their entirety. So we are all informed going forward when it comes to all the information that's there and all the information that we need going forward. So once again, here's Garth discussing the future.
Look, I think that the results have not been up to our standard for the last 5 years. Certainly, let's just talk about me. Those results are not are not up to my expectation. So yeah, I mean, look, every decision ultimately is mine with respect to Atlanta United, and has been since I arrived. So yeah, it's not up to that standard. And look, I am happy and excited about the ability now to pick a general manager and pick a head coach, and to have a lot of flexibility, to pick designated players whose personalities, whose long-term expectations may be better aligned with a club focused on some more stability. Instead of buy, develop, sell, can we sign prime age designated players so they can play in most of the games? And they are committed to the club. They are committed to Atlanta United, and they have the potential to stay here for a long time. And, I think we've seen, from the inception of Atlanta United, when players are here and the fan base embraces them. The most beloved players in Atlanta United history, guys like Brad Guzan, Joseph Martinez, part of those guys have been here for a long time in Brad's case, and certainly Joseph was as well. So we want that stability. We want that continuity. And look, yes, absolutely, our expectation has been better. And look, I think my track record speaks for itself. in terms of what I want to do. And the reason why I came to Atlanta United is simply to win championships. It's nothing less than that. And, I really felt like we were on a path where we weren't capable of winning championships. And so we had to undo a bunch of things in order to set us up with a different foundation to go forward and be successful long term. Because at the end of the day, making the playoffs isn't our goal. At the end of the day, winning a playoff series isn't our goal. We're here to win the whole thing. And there's not really any point in doing this unless that's the objective. Given the resources we have, given the ambition of the club, everything is possible here. And I that's really what I'm excited about now is now for the first time for me truly in 2 years, we have the ability now to truly go forward. We have cleared the decks. We have incredible possibility. We can now bring our resources to bear. And I'm really excited about that opportunity.
All of the contracts, remember at the beginning of the season when Garth Lagerwey, in the offseason heading into the 2024 season, there were contracts that Garth Lagerwey in the front office were looking at that they wanted to try and get off the books to help free up more funds, to help free up more AM, and reinvest that into other players. Then you come into this season and you have Thiago Almada, who is being sought after. No secret, no surprise. Then you have, is he going? Is he not? Is he going in this window? Is he going in the next window? There's always that palace intrigue that was attached with Thiago Almada. It wasn't an if, but a when. And so you navigate all of that. In the end, Thiago ends up to Eagle Holdings. Right now, he is at Botafogo. And the plan is Botafogo, Lyon, and then maybe he stays at Lyon. Maybe he goes to Crystal Palace, gives them a jump start. Or maybe, he might go to Everton at this point. Because of John Textor trying to divest himself of Crystal Palace so he can buy Everton. So the path right now was Thiago Almada to Eagle Football Holdings. Right now, Botafogo, Lyon, Lyon to either Crystal Palace or Everton if the sale goes through. So you had those funds coming in. Then Cruz Azul comes knocking on your door. Georgi Giacomakis not 100% healthy. And let me go back over the stats of Gigi this season. Let me get into club, hitting the right numbers, and then the stats for the year. So you look at Georgi Giacomakis' numbers. 11 games played, 8 starts. 3 times he comes in as a sub. Still tied. Well, he's tied for 4th in goals on the club with 5. 2 assists on 39 shots. Cruz Azul comes knocking on your door, and they are interested in your striker. The Grandes in Liga MX are not hurting financially. So when Cruz Azul comes knocking on your door for your striker, it was an unintended consequence. It wasn't something that you're sitting there and thinking, okay, we've got to find a playmaker to replace Thiago Almada. Cruz Azul comes knocking on your door and they're like, hey, if we give you 8 figures to the left of the decimal place, would you be willing to part with your striker? And to continue your reputation in the global marketplace, you're not going to say no if it's one of those offers that you can't refuse. And as it turned out, it was an offer that you couldn't refuse because at the end of the day, Cruz Azul tripled your investment in Georgi Giacomakis. What you spent was basically 3.5, if memory serves. And you end up with basically 10. So if you triple your investment and it continues to help build a reputation for a young club on the global stage, then you can't say no. It was good business for Atlanta United not to say no. And for the record, right now, Yorgos Giacomakis with Cruz Azul, after shaking off the initial injury that happened in his first preseason match, has started in 5 matches, or has started in 4 of the 5 matches in the Apertura. 3 goals, 2 assists on 14 shots for Cruz Azul. So it looks like Gigi might have shaken off the early numbers, but in his last 5 matches, it is, and it is a mix of Leagues Cup and Liga MX. Last 5 matches, a goal and 2 assists. So that's where we are with Gigi. Jarrett joins us for the foreseeable future. Jarrett, we're going until 7 o'clock when our friends at Scarves and Spikes will take over the coverage over on their YouTube channel. But I was playing a lot of the Garth sound from the press conference today, and what I wanted to do was make a point to play the sound in its entirety. 20-second sound bites was not going to be the way of the day here in explaining where we are and where things are headed for Atlanta United on this day of days where Carlos Bocanegra and Atlanta United part ways. I felt that it was important to play the sound in full when someone asks a question and not just lay out a 20-second soundbite for the future. So that's where we are with this discussion today. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. I think that's the way to go about it, especially today. Look, there's a time and a place for sound bites. We use them. We use clips all the time. When we're trying to get, like, if I'm doing post game,
yeah,
and I'm putting together a thread, I'm trying to put stuff together quickly and get information out. The time and a place for it. Today's one of those days where it needs to be more detailed.
Yeah.
Because I don't think there are simple answers for today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of tough. It's you don't. The easy answers are there, and yes, they feel easy. Oh, well, he's gone because he wasn't good. Well, it's not that simple. Like, it's never that simple with timing or a decision of this magnitude. Yeah, you do need the full quote as we dissect this and look at what you do going forward.
Yeah. And I went into the question and answer and subsequent answer involving the general manager, the future GM, whomever that individual is, where Garth said that there will be no dual role. You will not have a coach GM. And he is a firm believer, and he said this twice. He's a firm believer in a separation of church and state, upstairs and downstairs. Coach will coach, GM will GM. And then he also said that individual will have, even though it will be a part of a global search, that it will also be a GM with MLS experience. And then I went into, and we'll talk to Nico about this tomorrow in the 10:30 half hour, about the notion that Tom Bogert floated at Give Me Sport about Chris Henderson, and if he could be pried away from Inter Miami. And it was divulged in the Bogert piece that remember we were discussing on the morning show, suit and tie guy versus quarter zip pullover differences as to who did what aspect. Suit and tie guy, Raul Sanlehi, apparently bumped Chris Henderson out of his office. He's like, oh, that's mine. And Chris Henderson had to find another place in the office building to set up shop. So Sanlehi liked Chris Henderson's office so much that he took it. It's like, I'm going here, don't know about you. And the question being, could Chris Henderson be pried away from Inter Miami? And I discussed his activity this year, and I'll phrase it as activity, where you had 12 separate moves involving 11 players outbound, 9 players inbound, and that's just like loans and AM. That didn't even get into bringing in the Gulfstream Galacticos and getting all of them together on the salary numbers that they're on. And you have a guy like Chris Henderson on the East Coast. You have a guy like John Thorrington on the West Coast that have either this savant-like knowledge of the cap and prorated and this and that and AM and what I can play with. And I went into the DeAndre Yedlin deal and how much AM that was. And it was one of the weirdest numbers known to mankind, knowing how much AM you really needed in a situation. And you dealt Yedlin with his guaranteed salary and that 172,799. Literally, it's like going to get a gallon of gas. It was like $7.99. Not like an even numbered with zeros or anything, but like 172,799 in AM. To have individuals like that on both coasts, and the possibility that Chris Henderson makes mathematical sense about, okay, 1 + 1 = Chris Henderson, that kind of is like, yeah, you might be looking in that direction, but obviously you can't touch someone like that until the season is over, and Garth is that guy until the season is over.
Yeah, he is. And anyone who has seen, like, God, I guess any major sports team go through this process, I think has to understand, like, yeah, this isn't going to be like, it's not going to be like you just go grab somebody. It's not a video game.
No.
You have to wait for guys to be out of season. We run into this whole time in college sports and pro sports. Hey, they want to talk to so and so. Well, that's great. So and so is still under contract, and their team is in the playoffs, so we can't do that.
Kind of busy, and that's tampering, and you can't go there.
Exactly.
So, Bogert floating a name makes a lot of sense, but you can't do anything about that name until the end of the year. And you're looking at that, and because there was the whole idea of, okay, do you need a GM to go with you, Garth, to go chasing after a coach? So then the coach comes in and looks at the GM and looks at Garth, and it's like, okay, let's assemble players and all this kind of stuff. And Badger's fired up. He goes, Vermes is GM and Curtin as manager will win cups and tag team belts.
So here's the thing about that. And I know Badger's like kind of being fun, having fun with it.
He is. He's having fun. There was a crying emoji.
I get that. I'm also here to tell you that it feeds into one of my fears.
Okay.
One of my fears in sport is trying to replicate the past, as though it will always work in the future. And there are some instances in which that can work.
Mm-hmm. There
are also some instances where you are trying to capture lightning in a bottle when the storm has already passed and things evolve. The game evolves constantly.
Yeah.
If you're just trying to recreate, mid-20 teens, like, 2018, 2019 Seattle, I question how much you can. I question it. Because it can be tough to recreate something as this game evolves, as styles evolve. Now, bravo, everyone at MLS Digital. I'm proud of you all for finally admitting the fact and realizing the fact that you can actually play with the ball at your feet. You don't just have to. No, you don't just have to play direct pressure and counter ball. I'm proud of you. Look, man, better late than never.
Right.
That being said, it can be tricky. This whole thing can be very tricky. So I will be very interested to see what Atlanta is able to do, who they go after, because I know Bogart's piece linked it. I'll be interested to see who they go after. Vermes is already you want to find a fan base that is upset at Atlanta right now.
Ooh.
Go look at Kansas City, because what you will find is a fan base that is annoyed by the fact that that their ownership is just keeping this guy around.
Mm-hmm.
You want the inconvenience of it? There you go.
Yeah.
They're annoyed that they're keeping this guy around.
Well, yeah, and to your point, what I think you're looking for. I know that using Badger's example. What you're looking for is an up-and-coming Vermees and an up-and-coming Jim Curtin.
Yeah.
In
God
demographic.
only knows if Jim Curtin like hangs around. Like,
Yeah.
The Philadelphia thing's weird.
Yes, very.
But yeah, man, it's gonna be you go find, if it's Henderson, cool, he's got a proven track record, but you got to show me that he is that guy.
Yep.
And that's trickier and tougher. You'll see. Right now, for me personally, right now is about figuring out, what are you going to do? What are you going to do next? What are you going to do now? We can talk about hypotheticals and short lists because that's just what we do in sports. Finish out the season because it's not done, despite existing in this weird thing where, like, people, I don't know why, I guess, feel like they need to, like, be sad and pissy about everything, go off. You're not completely dead. Like I said last week, hey, Atlanta's got to take care of business. All they can do is they've put themselves in a situation where all they can do is worry about what's in front of them. And if I'm, if your reply to that is, well, so-and-so has games on them, they got this, they got that. All those teams are in the same position. Everybody's trying to figure out how they can deal with what's in front of them. It's the entire point. But if your expectation is that you're going to lose every game and that every other team is magically going to win every game, then I don't know why we're having this conversation, because nothing I say is going to convince you otherwise, other than to just be sad.
Yeah. One other soundbite, and once again, it is a full soundbite from Garth from today's media availability, has to do with the pressure, and it's a pressure that's attached and the turnaround. And if he feels it, and if he if it's a part of what you're taking advantage of an incredible opportunity. And so with all of that, here is looking at the opportunity. And since I didn't set all these up in order, I'm hoping I'm not playing the same soundbite twice. If I do, then I'll play the other soundbite that I have labeled, and we'll figure it out.
I want to be careful, because I never think that there's one right answer to these types of things. And the club did a tremendous number of things right at their inception and at launch. I mean, it was the best expansion launch in sports history. So I don't think it's for me to criticize what came before me. What I would say is, in terms of the organization I want to build, I'm a lawyer by training, and we used a lot of processes at Latham that I think carry over well to a sports organization. And we are trying to use all the resources at AMBSE and bring them to bear to build the best processes and the best analytics and the best organization we can across the soccer team. And as you guys have heard me say, if we're building systematically, if we're building methodically, if we're adding one DP a window, again, if we can add two DPs in a window, that's awesome. I've never been able to pull that off in my career, but we endeavor to do that. And we're going to try to get back on the source and get the machine pointed the right direction again for Atlanta United. And again, the potential here is it's astronomical. I think we have the best facilities in the league. We certainly have the best stadium in the league. And so it's all here for us. It's just a matter of taking advantage of it. And so all I see here is the same as when I was hired. I see incredible opportunity. And what we didn't have was the flexibility. We had to unmake a number of decisions to put ourselves in a position to finally move forward. And we've been able to do that. And it's been painful. I'm not going to claim it wasn't bumpy along the way. I'm not going to claim that this year hasn't been a disappointment, but we can also still salvage this year. We got 7 games left. We got 4 home games. We're in the last playoff spot. Like, we can do this. We just spent more money than any other team in the summer transfer window. We added, we think, 2 good players in Amador and Moranchik. And so we think we have real good possibility of making the playoffs this year. That remains the goal. And then building off of that, again, 2 DP spots, new GM, potentially a new coach. And we think that gives us the maximum flexibility and the maximum possibility to turn this thing around.
Okay. So he is incredibly confident in turning this thing around. And then I think I might have played that one before, but like I said, everything's kind of blending together today. Let me play this one soundbite about the pressure and whether or not he feels it internally too.
Look, I think that the results have not been up to our standard for the last 5 years. Certainly, let's just talk about me. Those results are not are not up to my expectation. So yeah, I mean, look, every decision ultimately is mine with respect to Atlanta United, and has been since I arrived. So yeah, it's not up to that standard, and look, I am happy and excited about the ability now to pick a general manager and pick a head coach, and to have a lot of flexibility. To pick designated players whose personalities, whose long-term expectations may be better aligned with a club focused on some more stability. Instead of buy, develop, sell, can we sign prime age designated players so they can play in most of the games? And they are committed to the club. They are committed to Atlanta United, and they have the potential to stay here for a long time. And I think we've seen from the inception of Atlanta United, when players are here and the fan base embraces them. The most beloved players in Atlanta United history, guys like Brad Guzan, Joseph Martinez. Part of those guys have been here for a long time in Brad's case, and certainly Joseph was as well. So we want that stability. We want that continuity. And look, yes, absolutely, our expectation has been better. And look, I think my track record speaks for itself in terms of what I want to do. And the reason why I came to Atlanta United is simply to win championships. It's nothing less than that. And, I really felt like we were on a path where we weren't capable of winning championships. And so we had to undo a bunch of things in order to set us up with a different foundation to go forward and be successful long term. Because at the end of the day, making the playoffs isn't our goal. At the end of the day, winning a playoff series isn't our goal. We're here to win the whole thing. And there's not really any point in doing this unless that's the objective. Given the resources we have, given the ambition of the club, everything is possible here. And I that's really what I'm excited about now is now for the first time for me, truly in 2 years, we have the ability now to truly go forward. We have cleared the decks. We have incredible possibility. We can now bring our resources to bear, and I'm really excited about that opportunity.
That was the soundbite I played twice. Okay, prime age designated players. Once again, Garth makes that point, Jared, that it's prime age designated players. And with the amount of money that he is making sure does not burn a hole in his pocket, once again, you bring in Miranchuk, and you now have you can now look at the World Theater, and with the money that you got in tripling your investment in Yorgos Giakoumakis, when Chelsea knocked on your door and said, "Hey, we're digging this Caleb Wiley guy," and Boley Clearlake, went into Sharper Image and saw the Caleb Wiley cardboard cutout, and they're like, "Ooh, I want that." So that plus the Barco money, I think that there's we mentioned that, and we have to figure out the world logistics in those funds as well. So you're looking 35 million-ish in trying to figure out how you want to proceed looking into 2025. It will be a fantastic challenge. It will be great. It will be a great puzzle piece. It'll be the 500 piece puzzle of like the Netherlands, piecing it together. But it will be one of the great challenges of the staff that is assembled by Garth Lagerwey and AMBSC and search firm and all that kind of stuff. So we are looking at an interesting time from an analysis standpoint, an interesting time from an assembly standpoint, and an interesting time in a franchise standpoint, considering everything that we have seen over the last handful of seasons here.
Yeah, here's the thing, man. A lot of this is going to sound familiar from Garth.
Yeah.
About, how things look, undoing things, trying to tear down so that they can build up properly, all of that. Like, all of that is going to sound very familiar.
Right.
To a lot of people. And this is the big time.
Mm-hmm.
Because now what you're in is a situation where You have talked about this. You made moves last summer window. You made moves in the winter. You've gone through a manager now. You've gone through a GM / technical director, whatever you want to call
Yep.
him. Now you are in a situation where it's about you cleared the decks to really beyond, I think, the extent maybe that some expected this year.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like Carlos was out of contract at the end of the year. You would have just kind of surprised he didn't do it at the end of the year, maybe. And I think Mike talked about this as well. I wonder if some of this was also like, hey, we're not going to keep you. How would you? What if we just we'll move on now,
Yeah.
and you can start looking and seeing what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is okay. Big time now.
Mm-hmm.
You are in the big time now. You have gotten into a situation where you have made the appropriate moves, where you should be good going forward. And this is completely your project.
Yeah.
So, obviously, I don't mean it in a bad way, but let's show me what you got. Because like we talked about this morning, John, this is a different role than he had in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was more of a GM role. This is more of like president CEO.
Yeah, this is the different side of the office park. This is the other side of the building.
This is not the quarter zip. This is the suit and tie.
Yeah.
And this is now where a guy who has won titles 2 places in this league has a chance to really build out his legacy. And guys who have been on the field, I think, written off by a lot of people. Some who have watched the games, some who may not have watched the games, and watched this team play. Now is a chance for everyone to prove a point. That is on the field, that is in the front office, and now is your chance. What you got?
Yeah, and that is part of our that is part of our Color Your Adventure, Choose Your Own Adventure coloring book as we go forward. Tomorrow, once again, it will be a very busy morning. We will probably talk a lot about this now that it will have digested and everyone will have had the opportunity to sit there and look at it in hour number 1. Hour number 2, 10:05 Eastern, it's the Power Hour with our buddy Nino Torres coming in. Nico Moreno coming in for the last half hour. I'm looking forward to seeing what Nico has to say about Garth, suit and tie Garth, as opposed to quarter zip Garth. Now having this moment attached to what's going on, and Chris Henderson, getting some analysis about Chris Henderson. I know that Nico's talked about it before when Chris took the gig in Fort Lauderdale, but now the idea that could he wander off? Could he be cajoled, convinced? Hey, if you are left alone and you have the choice of wearing quarter zip Henley or suit and tie, depending on the day and the situation, that you could do that. So that is where we will be tomorrow morning, starting at 9:05. We will discuss what's going on here with Atlanta United as it carries in, and you're getting ready for the stretch run here and the run in. And what this also does is it gives a week to process it. You don't have games this weekend. You've got folks who are in international duty, and you have a week to have this digest. It goes through this weekend, and then you're in a match week. It's not like the 12 teams that are playing this weekend where you're going, okay, oh crap, we're doing this on a Wednesday and we've got to get ready for a matchup on a Saturday. No, you get to watch everybody. You get to watch the 12 teams play on Saturday, then get ready for your match week with your interim manager in Rob Valentino, and now focusing on the future involving everything with Atlanta United. So, parting ways with Carlos Bocanegra. Garth Lagerwey had that media availability this afternoon. And we get to see where it goes from here. I have posted in the Twitch pitch the link to Scarves and Spikes. We're done. We're going to let them pick up the coverage right now. Head over to YouTube, do a Scarves and Spikes search if you don't have them earmarked. They're going to carry it on, and I want to know if Tyler is actually going to get a signal off a boat. Tommy and Sid, take your coverage now on YouTube with our buddies over at Scarves and Spikes. Mucha Platiel, play it safe. We'll be back at it again tomorrow morning, 9:05. Enjoy their coverage. We're done for today, and we'll be back at it again tomorrow. Man's got to find a full screen just so we can get out the door. There's your outro slide. We're out the door. We'll see you at 9:05 tomorrow.